タスリープさんを紹介したいと思います。今回こちらのBluetooth のヘッドホン付きのアイマスクをマンタスリープさんからいただいたんですけれど、100% 真っ暗になるらしくって、どんな感じでASMR とか聞きながら寝れるのかちょっと検証したくって、やっていきたいと思います。その前にこちらのお店では Bluetooth 以外にもあったかくなる、目の周りがあったかくなるアイマスクとか、ひんやりする感じ、夏に合ってる感じとか、あとはなんかシルクのアイマスクだったり、ちょっと圧を目の周りにつけて、こちら辺の目のあたりの血行を良くしてくれるのとかもあるので、ぜひ興味があるなって方は、こちらもしくは概要欄の、URL 公式サイトへ飛んでいただく、もしくは、割引コードBluekatieを使って 10% オフをゲットしてみてください。いつもありがとう。はい、では早速、これはね、寝る前ですね。本当に、ガチで寝る前なんですけれど、アイマスクをつけて、寝てみるっていう検証をやっていきたいと思います。マスカット。ここがね、アイマスクのところでカップ式になってるんだけど、目の周りにね、圧ができてすごくリラックスできるらしいんですけど、実際つけてみて、Bluetooth で ASMR を聞きながら寝たいと思います。こんな感じの動画を見てみようかな。こんな感じですね。つけてみると、可愛いこぶってます。やめとき。じゃ寝てみるよ。おやすみ。グッナイグッナイグッナイグッナイグッナイグッナイグッナイって試してみるよ。おはようございます。おはよう。あくびしてますね。起きました。朝起きた時にはアイマスクがすっ飛んでました。それぐらい快眠したってことかな。実際マスクで寝てみたんだけどね、起きた時にはもうベッドの先の方に取れてたので、それぐらい寝相が悪いんですけれどまた可愛いこぶってますね。すっごい気持ちよかったです。寝るのがすごく簡単ですっきり寝ちゃったんですけれど、私特に寝る前にね、薄暗い部屋とかだとなんか変なものが見えちゃうんで、真っ暗の中で ASMR 見るの最高でした。本当におすすめです。ぜひこのリンクで、割引コードBluekatieを使って、ゲットしてみてください。おやすみ。みんなも快眠してね。おやすみ。いつもありがとう。グッナイト。このサイトでチェキラ。じゃあまたね。動画にレッツゴー。おかえり。おかえりなさーい。ASMR ブルーケイティです今日はちょっといつもと違ったゆったりとした感じの動画なんですけど、地声に近いなんかちょっとした小声みたいなので、英語で日本の昔話を読んでほしいっていうリクエストをいただきまして、いやもうね、愛する I love you な視聴者様方々からリクエストをメールでいただきましたら、それやるしかないので、こちらにいます地声っていうかなんかちょっと小声な感じでちょっと声が低めになるんですけど、それもそれでいいんじゃないかなと思っておりますというわけで今日はね、英語の読み聞かせって言ったらなんか日本の昔話でもちょっとなんか抵抗があるって思う方もいると思うんですけれど、英語の実際に話してることの字幕だけじゃなくて、翻訳された字幕も用意してあるので、ぜひオンにして 英語の勉強とかにも使っていただけるんじゃないかなと思っています。その他にも私が読みながらちょっとずつ翻訳していきたいと思うので、英語圏の方にも日本語圏の方にも両方楽しんでいただけるような動画にしたいと思います。おすそわけおもてなし何言ってんだ。今日読んでいく本はこちらです。 This is the book I'm gonna read. 日本の昔話 Tales of Japan。 これがね、めっちゃいい音するんだ。読んでいくよ。この中になんか結構マイナーな、日本の方でもあんまご存知ではないようなお話とかも結構あるんですけれど、その中でなんか何これみたいな、秋之助の夢とかなんか聞いたことない話とかが結構あって、一番やっぱ定番のかぐや姫読んでいくのがベストかなと思って、結構こうちっちゃい頃お母さんとかお父さんに読んでもらう昔話とは違う感じで、結構原作に近い、昔話ってなってるので、大人大きくなった子供たちのみんなにも楽しんでいただけるかなと思います。始まり始まり。 Let's start。 こんな感じの絵。始まり始まり。 The Bamboo Cutter and the Moonchild。 Bamboo Cutter 竹切る人、Moonchild 月の子供。 Long, long ago, there lived an old bamboo woodcutter. 昔々。He was very poor and sad also, for no child had heaven sent to cheer his old age, and in his heart there was no hope of rest from work till he died and was laid in the quiet grave. 年を取った竹の木こりがいました。年を取っていて子供もいない。Every morning he went forth into the woods and hills, wherever the bamboo reared its lithe green plumes against the sky. When he had made his choice, he would cut down these feathers of the forest and splitting them lengthwise, or cutting them into joints, would carry the bamboo wood home and make it into various articles for his household, and he and his wife gained a small livelihood by selling them. 毎朝竹を切ってちっちゃい家具を作って、それでなんかギリギリこう家計を回していたってことですね。One morning, as usual, he had gone out to his work, and having found a nice clump of bamboos, had set to work to cut some of them down. Suddenly, the green grove of bamboos was flooded with a bright, soft light, as if the full moon had risen over the spot. 突然、切った竹から光が出てきた。Looking round in astonishment, he saw that the brilliance was streaming from one bamboo. The old man, full of wonder, dropped his axe and went towards the light. On nearer approach, he saw that this soft splendor came from a hollow in the green bamboo stem and was more wonderful to behold. In the midst of the brilliance stood a tiny human being, only 3 inches in height and exquisitely beautiful in appearance. 切った竹からちっちゃくてとっても可愛いお姫様が出てきたと。You must be sent to be my child, for I find you here among the bamboos where lies my daily work. 僕が毎日来てる竹のところから出てきたんだから君は私の娘なんじゃないかと。said the old man, and taking the little creature in his hand, he took it home to his wife to bring it up. The tiny girl was so exceedingly beautiful and so small that the old women put her into a basket to safeguard her from the least possibility of being hurt in any way. もうすっごく綺麗でちっちゃくて、もう傷つけたくないからちっちゃなバスケットみたいなの入れてみました。The old couple were now very happy, for it had been a lifelong regret that they had no children of their own, and with joy they now expended all the love of their old age on the little child who had come to them in so marvelous a manner. 老夫婦は、子だくさんではなかったので、そのかぐや姫を自分の子供かのように大事に育てました。From this time on, the old man often found gold in the notches of the bamboos when he hewed them down and cut them up. Not only gold, but precious stones also, so that by degrees he became rich. He built himself a fine house and was no longer known as the poor bamboo woodcutter, but as a wealthy man. かぐや姫を引き取ってからおじいさんはいろんなところから、金とかを見つけたりとかしてお金持ちになりました。3 months passed quickly away, and in that time, the bamboo child had, wonderful to say, become a full-grown girl, so her foster parents did up her hair and dressed her up in beautiful kimonos. やがてかぐや姫は大人の女性になり、どんどんと素敵な方になったってことね。着物を着せてあげたりとか。She was of such wondrous beauty that they placed her behind the screens like a princess and allowed no one to see her, waiting upon her themselves. おじいさんとおばあさんはかぐや姫を誰にも見せなかった。It seemed as if she were made of light, for the house was filled with soft shining, so that even in the dark of night it was like daytime. なんか真っ暗な時でもかぐや姫がいれば光が家にあったと。Her presence seemed to have a benign influence on those there. Whenever the old man felt sad, he had only to look upon his foster daughter, and his sorrow vanished, and he became happy, as when he was a youth. かぐや姫を見ると誰もが悲しみとか怒りとかも全部嫌な気分がなくなってハッピーに。At last the day came for the naming of their newfound child, so the old couple called in and celebrated name giver. And he gave her the name of Princess Moonlight, because her body gave forth so much soft bright light that she might have been a daughter of the moon god. 彼女はすごく輝いていたからかぐや姫と名付けられました。For 3 days, the festival was kept up with song and dance and music. All the friends and relations of the old couple were present, and great was their enjoyment of the festivities held to celebrate the naming of Princess Moonlight. パーティーを開いたというわけね。名前名付けのパーティー、祝い。Everyone who saw her declared that there had never been anyone so lovely. All the beauties throughout the length and breadth of the land would grow pale beside her, so they said. パーティーへ来た人みんなが口を揃えていました。こんなに綺麗な人を見たことはないと。The fame of the princess's loveliness spread far and wide, and many were the suitors who desired to win her hand, or even so much as to see her. Suitors from far and near posted themselves outside the house and made little holes in the fence in the hope of catching a glimpse of the princess as she went from one room to the other along the veranda. どうしても見たいと。国全体から、一目見たいと。家の柵の穴を開けてまで見たい。They stayed there day and night, sacrificing even their sleep for a chance of seeing her, but all in vain. Then they approached the house and tried to speak to the old man and his wife, or some of the servants, but not even this was granted them. 誰もかぐや姫を見ることはできなかった。Still, in spite of all this disappointment, they stayed on day after day and night after night, and counted it as nothing, so great was their desire to see the princess. どうしても見て。At last, however, most of the men, seeing how hopeless their quest was, lost heart and hope both, and returned to their homes, all except 5 knights, whose ardor and determination, instead of waning, seemed to wax greater with obstacles. These 5 men even went without their meals and took snatches of whatever they could get brought to them, so that they might always stand outside the dwelling. 5人の騎士が、最終的に残ってもどんな時でももうへりつくばってもう俺らはかぐや姫が見たいとすごく、決心していたみたいね。They stood there in all weathers, in sunshine and in rain. Sometimes they wrote letters to the princess, but no answer was vouchsafed to them. 必死になってどの季節も辛い季節もご飯がなくても手紙を書いても返事はなかった。Then, when letters failed to draw any reply, they wrote poems to her telling her of the hopeless love which kept them from sleep, from food, from rest, and even from their homes. Still, Princess Moonlight gave no sign of having received their verses. めっちゃ愛してるよって詩を送っても返事はなかった。In this hopeless state the winter passed. The snow and frost and the cold winds gradually gave place to the gentle warmth of spring. 冬は終わって春になりました。Then the summer came, and the sun burned white and scorching in the heavens above and on earth beneath. And still these faithful knights kept watch and waited. 夏になって暑くても待ってる。At the end of these long months, they called out to the old bamboo cutter and entreated him to have some mercy upon them, and to show them the princess, but he answered only that As he was not her real father, he could not insist on her obeying him against her wishes. もうお願いだから容赦してくれっておじいさんに騎士は聞いても、本当のお父さんじゃないから無理やりなんかさせることはできないと。The five knights, on receiving this stern answer, returned to their several homes and pondered over the best means of touching the proud princess's heart, even so as to grant them a hearing. 一旦家に帰ってどうしたらいいんだろうって騎士たちは考えました。かがや姫なんかこうあれだよね、こう実家の引きこもり、あれあれここにいる、引きこもりここにいるThey took their rosaries in hand and knelt before their household shrines and burned precious incense, praying to Buddha to give them their heart's desire. Thus, several days passed, but even so they could not rest in their homes. So again, they set out for the bamboo cutter's house. This time, the old man came out to see them, and they asked him to let them know if it was the princess's resolution never to see any man whatsoever, and they implored him to speak for them and to tell her the greatness of their love, and how long they had waited through the cold of winter and the heat of summer, sleepless and roofless through all weathers, without food and without rest, in the ardent hope of winning her. And they were willing to consider this long vigil as pleasure if she would but give them one chance of pleading their cause with her. なんか文章、これは、もうおじいさんたちに騎士がもう本当にかぐや姫はもう一生男性と会わずに生きていくのはさすがにじゃないってことで、もうお願いだからこんなに頑張ってるんだから見させてくれと。The old man lent a willing ear to their tale of love, for in his inmost heart he felt sorry for these faithful suitors and would have liked to see his lovely foster daughter married to one of them. So he went in to Princess Moonlight and said reverently, "Although you have always seemed to me to be a heavenly being, yet I have had the trouble of bringing you up as my own child, and you have been glad of the protection of my roof. Will you refuse to do as I wish?" おじいさんもかぐや姫に結婚してほしいからお願いだから聞いてくれないかと。Then Princess Moonlight replied that there was nothing she would not do for him, and that she honored and loved him as her own father, and that was for herself. She could not remember the time before she came to earth. かぐや姫はもうおじいさんが言うことなら聞いてあげますって。私は地球に来る前の人生のことを覚えていませんと。The old man listened with great joy as she spoke these dutiful words. Then he told her how anxious he was to see her safely and happily married before he died. I am an old man, over 70 years of age, and my end may come any time now. It is necessary and right that you should see these 5 suitors and choose one of them. もうおじいさんも私はもう70歳以上なんだって、いつ死んでもいいからお願いだから死ぬ前に結婚してくれと。Oh, why? Said the princess in distress. Must I do this? I have no wish to marry now. 結婚したくないよってかぐやさん。I found you, answered the old man, many years ago, when you were a little creature, 3 inches high, in the midst of a great white light. The light streamed from the bamboo in which you were hid, and led me to you. So I have always thought that you are more than a mortal woman. While I am alive, it is right for you to remain as you are, if you wish to do so. But someday I shall cease to be, and who will take care of you then? Therefore, I pray you to meet these 5 brave men one at a time, and make up your mind to marry one of them. おじいさんも私が死んだら君のことを面倒見るのは誰なんだ。お願いだから騎士の人たちに会ってくれと。Then the princess answered that she felt sure that she was not as beautiful as perhaps report made her out to be, and that even she consented to marry one of them, not really knowing her before. His heart might change afterwards. かぐや姫が、みんなが言うほど私は綺麗じゃないかもしれないと。結婚してみては、その騎士さんたちががっかりさせちゃうかもしれないと。So as she did not feel sure of them, even though her father told her they were worthy knights, she did not feel it wise to see them. All you say is very reasonable, said the old man. But what kind of men will you consent to see? I do not call these 5 men who have waited on you for months light-hearted. They have stood outside this house through the winter and the summer, often denying themselves food and sleep so that they may win you. What more can you demand? おじいさんはこの人たちはもうすべてを犠牲にしてまでもかぐや姫と会いたいんだから、そんな外見なんかで心は変わんないよと説得しようとしてますね。Then Princess Moonlight said she must make further trial of their love before she would grant their request to interview her. The 5 warriors were to prove their love by each bringing her from distant countries something that she desired to possess. 試すことにしました。かぐや姫は何か取るのが難しいのを取ってこいと。The same evening, the suitors arrived and began to play their flutes in turn and to sing their self-composed songs telling of their great and tireless love. The bamboo cutter went out to them and offered them his sympathy for all they had endured and all the patience they had shown in their desire to win his foster daughter. おじさんはやっと、5人の騎士たちもよく頑張ったと、もう同情すると伝えました。Then he gave them her message that she would consent to marry whosoever was successful in bringing her what she wanted. This was the test. おじいさんは伝えました。このかぐや姫からの、試験に合格することができれば結婚できると。The 5 all accepted the trial and thought it was an excellent plan, for it would prevent jealousy between them. かぐや姫じゃなくて、騎士たちは、受けようと言いました。嫉妬とかね、騎士同士の嫉妬とかを回避できると。Princess Moonlight then sent word to the first knight that she requested him to bring her the stone bowl, which had belonged to Buddha in India. The second knight was asked to go to the mountain of Horai, said to be situated in the eastern sea, and to bring her a branch of the wonderful tree that grew on its summit. The root of his tree were of silver, and trunk of gold, and the branches bore as fruit white jewels. ブッダがインドで使っていた石のお椀だったり、なんかおとぎ話に出てくる木の枝とか取ってこいと。The third knight was told to go to China and search for the fire rat and to bring her its skin. 無茶ぶりをかましてるわけですね。 The fourth night was told to search for the dragon that carried on its head the stone radiating 5 colors and to bring the stone to her. The fifth night was to find the swallow, which carried a shell in its stomach and to bring the shell to her. The old man thought these very hard tasks and hesitated to carry the messages if the princess would make no other conditions. So her commands were issued word for word to the 5 men who, when they heard what was required of them, were all disheartened and disgusted at what seemed to them the impossibility of the tasks given them and returned to their homes in despair. 騎士たちはその課題を聞いた時もがっかりとしてこれは無理じゃないかと、肩を下げてお家に帰ったということです。But after a time, when they thought of the princess, the love in their hearts revived for her, and they resolved to make an attempt to get what she desired of them. 一旦家に帰ってからかぐや姫のことを考えた時も俺はやっぱり好きだと戻ってきたわけです。実際にかぐや姫に会ったことないのになんかこう自分の空想の中のイメージに恋をしている、なんかこうアイドルだね、かぐや姫は。The first knight sent word to the princess that he was starting out that day on the quest of Buddha's bowl, and he hoped soon to bring it to her. But he had not the courage to go all the way to India, for in those days traveling was very difficult and full of danger, so he went to one of the temples in Kyoto and took a stone bowl from the altar there, paying the priest a large sum of money for it. 最初の騎士はもうさすがに無理だからインドにはさすがに行けないから、なんか京都でなんか似た感じの石のお椀でも買っとけばええやろと。He then wrapped it in a cloth of gold and, waiting quietly for 3 years, returned and carried it to the old man. 3年待って。嘘ついてね、3年待って、持ってきたと。Princess Moonlight wondered that the knight should have returned so soon. She took the bowl from its gold wrapping, expecting it to make the room full of light, but it did not shine at all, so she knew that it was a sham thing and not the true bowl of Buddha. 全然輝かなかったからかぐや姫はこれはもうパチモンだと。She returned it at once and refused to see him もう会わないと。The knight threw the bowl away and returned to his home in despair. He gave up all hopes of ever winning the princess. 最初の騎士はもう諦めました。The second knight told his parents that he needed change of air for his health, and that he was ashamed to tell them that love for the Princess Moonlight was the real cause of his leaving him. 2番目の騎士はさすがになんか家でするのもこうアイドルをかけるためっていうのは恥ずかしいからちょっとこう気分転換っていうことで実家から家出したそうです。He then left his home, at the same time sending word to the princess that he was setting out for Mount Horai in the hope of getting her a branch of the gold and silver tree which she so much wished to have. He only allowed his servants to accompany him halfway and then sent them back. He reached the seashore and embarked on a small ship, and after sailing away for 3 days, he landed and employed several carpenters to build him a house contrived in such a way that no one could get access to it. 騎士の2番目は、海から船に乗ってなんか島かなんかで誰も入れないように家を作りました。He then shut himself up with 6 skilled jewelers and endeavored to make such a gold and silver branch as he thought would satisfy the princess, as having come from this wonderful tree growing on Mount Horai. Everyone whom he had asked declared that Mount Horai belonged to the land of fable and not to fact. なんかプロに似たようなやつを作ってくれないかと彼は聞いたわけですね。もうさすがにホライっていう山は、おとぎ話のものだと。When the branch was finished, he took his journey home and tried to make himself look as if he were wearied and worn out with travel. めっちゃ疲れたみたいなふりをしてかぐや姫に持ってきたと。偽物を。He put the jeweled branch into a lacquer box and carried it to the bamboo cutter, begging him to present it to the princess. The old man was quite deceived by the travel-stained appearance of the knight and thought that he had only just returned from his long journey with the branch. So he tried to persuade the princess to consent to see the man. おじいさんはまんまと騙されて、いやもうこんな頑張ったんだからさすがに会ってあげなよと。But she remained silent and looked very sad. The old man began to take out the branch and praised it as a wonderful treasure to be found nowhere in the whole land. Then he spoke of the knight, how handsome and how brave he was to have undertaken a journey to so remote a place as the Mount of Horai. Princess Moonlight took the branch in her hand and looked at it carefully. She then told her foster parent that she knew it was impossible for the man to have obtained the branch from the gold and silver tree growing on Mount Horai so quickly or so easily, and she was sorry to say she believed it artificial. かぐや姫はおとぎ話のに出てくる枝なんだからあなたがそんな簡単に取ってこれるわけではないあるわけないでしょと彼女はもう分かってて課題を出したということですね。悪い女。The old man then went out to the expectant knight, who had now approached the house, and asked where he had found the branch. The man did not scruple to make up a long story. おじさんは騎士にどうやってじゃあ見つけたのと聞きました。彼はもう嘘の話を思いついた。2 years ago, I took a ship and started in search of Mount Horai. After going before the wind for some time, I reached the far eastern sea. Then a great storm arose, and I was tossed about for many days, losing all count of the points of the compass, and finally we were blown ashore on an unknown island. Here I found the place inhabited by demons, who at one time threatened to kill and eat me. However, I managed to make friends with these horrible creatures, and they helped me and my sailors to repair the boat, and I set sail again. 鬼とかがいる島にも出たけども俺はこいつらと友達になって船とかを直してもらったんだと。Our food gave out and we suffered much from sickness on board. At last, on the 500th day from the day of starting, I saw far off on the horizon what looked like a peak of a mountain. On nearer approach, this proved to be an island, in the center of which rose a high mountain. I landed, and after wandering about for 2 or 3 days, I saw a shining being coming towards me on the beach, holding in his hands a golden bowl. I went up to him and asked him if I had, by good chance, found the island of Mount Horai. And he answered, "Yes, this is Mount Horai." 嘘の話を考えたとね、いうわけですね。よいしょ。どうやって見つけたかと。With much difficulty, I climbed up the summit, where stood the golden tree growing with silver roots in the ground. The wonders of that strange land are many, and if I began to tell you about them, I could never stop. In spite of my wish to stay there long, on breaking off the branch, I hurried back. With utmost speed, it was taking me 400 days to get back. And, as you see, my clothes are still damp from exposure on the long sea voyage. I have not even waited to change my raiment, so anxious was I to bring the branch to the princess quickly. もう必死になって400日かけてやっと帰ってきたけども、どうしてもかぐや姫に会いたいから、服も変えずに会いに来ましたと嘘をついているわけです。Just at this moment, the 6 jewelers who had been employed on the making of the branch, but not yet paid by the knight, arrived at the house and sent in a petition to the princess to be paid for their labor. その瞬間、その枝を作ったプロがドアを開けて、いや俺らまだお支払いもらってないんだと、かぐや姫に訴えました。They said that they had worked for over 1,000 days making the branch of gold, with its silver twigs and its jeweled fruit, that was now presented to her by the knight, but as yet they had received nothing in payment. So this knight's deception was thus found out, and the princess, glad of an escape from one more importunate suitor, was only too pleased to send back the branch. もうかぐや姫はもうやったと。こいつと結婚しなくていい理由ができたと。She called in the workmen and had paid them liberally, and they went away happy. かぐや姫は、たくさんお支払いをして、もうバイバイってそのプロの人たちと騎士に、さよならを言いました。But on the way home, they were overtaken by the disappointed man, who beat them till they were nearly dead for letting out the secret, and they barely escaped with their lives. 2番目の騎士はそのプロの人たちをボッコボコにして、お前らなんで俺の秘密をばらしたんだと。ひどい人ですね。The knight then returned home, raging in his heart, and in despair of ever winning the princess, gave up society and retired to a solitary life among the mountains. 騎士はもうすべてを諦めて、その後山で一人で住むようになったそうです。Now the third knight had a friend in China. 3番目は中国に行かなくちゃいけなかったんだよね。で、友達がいました、中国に。So he wrote to him to get the skin of the fire rat. The virtue of any part of this animal was that no fire could harm it. He promised his friend any amount of money he liked to ask, if only he could get him the desired article. As soon as the news came that the ship on which his friend had sailed home had come into port, he rode 7 days on horseback to meet him. He handed his friend a large sum of money and received the fire red skin. When he reached home, he put it carefully in a box and sent it in to the princess, while he waited outside for her answer. 中国にいる友達に、このなんか火でも殺せないネズミをお金めっちゃあげるから取ってきてって聞いたら、ゲットしてくれたらしい。The bamboo cutter took the box from the knight and as usual carried it in to her and tried to coax her into seeing the knight at once. But Princess Moonlight refused. saying that she must first put the skin to test by putting it on into the fire. If it were the real thing, it would not burn. かぐや姫が、本当にその真実を言っているなら、その肌に火をつけても大丈夫だろうと。So she took off the crepe wrapper and opened the box, and then threw the skin into the fire. The skin crackled and burned up at once, and the princess knew that this man also had not fulfilled this word. So the third night failed also. ネズミの皮膚皮は火で燃えたので、3番目も嘘をついていた。Now the fourth night was no more enterprising than the rest. Instead of starting out on the quest of the dragon, bearing on its head the 5-color radiating jewel, he called in all of his servants together and gave them the order to seek for it far and wide in Japan and in China. And he strictly forbade any of them to return till they had found it. 4番目もなんか竜を捕まえてこいっていうので、日本と中国にいる手下の人たちにも取ってくるまで帰ってくんだと。His numerous retainers and servants started out in different directions, with no intention, however, of obeying what they considered an impossible order. They simply took a holiday, went to pleasant country places together, and grumbled at their master's unreasonableness. 手下たちはもうさすがにこの人は嘘。無理ってことで、もう勝手に休みとしていろいろと旅に行ったり楽しんでた。The knight, meanwhile, thinking that his retainers could not fail to find the jewel, repaired to his house and fitted it up beautifully for the reception of the princess. He felt so sure of winning her. その間、騎士は家をきれいにして、かぐや姫を迎える準備をしていたと。One year passed away in a weary waiting, and still his men did not return with the dragon jewel. 1年経っても帰らなかった。The knight became desperate. He could wait no longer, so taking with him only 2 men, he hired a ship and commanded the captain to go in search of the dragon. The captain and the sailors refused to undertake what they said was an absurd search, but the knight compelled them, at last to put them to sea. もう待ちきれないと騎士は船の、キャプテンにお願いだから連れてってくれと。When they had been but a few days out, they encountered a great storm which lasted so long. By the time its fury abated, the knight had determined to give up the hunt of the dragon. They were at last blown on shore, for navigation was primitive in those days. Worn out his travels and anxiety, the fourth sailor gave himself up to rest. He had caught a very heavy cold and had to go to bed with a swollen face. 船に乗っているとき、なんか突然の嵐に巻き込まれて、もうくったくたになった騎士はもう無理とギブだったと。The governor of the place, hearing of his plight, sent messengers with a letter inviting him to his house. While he was here, thinking over all his troubles, his love for the princess turned into anger, and he blamed her for the hardships that he had undergone. 騎士はもうかぐや姫を恨むようになりました。なんでこんな辛い思いをさせるんだと。He thought that it was quite probable she had wished to kill him so that she might be rid of him, and in order to carry out her wish, had sent him upon his impossible quest. 騎士はもうかぐや姫は俺を殺そうとしてるのかと。At this point, all the servants he had sent out to find the jewel came to see him, and were surprised to find praise instead of displeasure awaiting them. Their master told them that he was heartily sick of adventure and said that he never intended to go near the princess's house again in the future. 4番目の騎士は、手下が帰った時のもう俺はもう冒険は十分だと。もう帰るって。もう二度とかぐや姫の家には近づかないと。Like all the rest, the fifth knight failed in his quest. He could not find the swallow's shell. 5番目も見つけられなかったと。By this time, the fame of Princess Moonlight's beauty had reached the ears of the emperor, and he sent one of the court ladies to see if she were really as lovely as report said. If so, he would summon her to the palace and make her one of the ladies in waiting. その時、かぐや姫の美貌はもう国全体で有名で、その国のエンペラーなんていうんだろう、天皇陛下みたいな方にも届いて、手下を送ったと。本当にそんなに美しいなら、わしの次のお嫁さんになってもいいと。When the court lady arrived, in spite of her father's entreaties, Princess Moonlight refused to see her. The imperial messenger insisted, saying it was the emperor's order. Then, Princess Moonlight told the old man that if she was forced to go to the palace in obedience to the emperor's order, she would vanish from the earth. かぐや姫は言いました。無理やり行かされるなら私はこの地球を出ますよと。Girl boss. When the emperor was told of her persistence in refusing to obey his summons, and that if pressed to obey she would disappear altogether from sight, he determined to go and see her. 天皇陛下もおはかったと。わしが自ら行ってやると。So he planned to go on a hunting excursion into the neighborhood of the bamboo cutter's house and see the princess himself. He sent word to the old man of his intention, and he received consent to the scheme. The next day, the emperor set out with his retinue, which he soon managed to outride. He found the bamboo cutter's house and dismounted. He then entered the house and went straight to where the princess was sitting with her attendant maidens. 天皇陛下おじいさんにまでもその企みを伝えて、もう無理やり家に入ってきますと。おじいさんはしょうがねえなと。Never had he seen anyone so wonderfully beautiful, and he could not but look at her. For she was more lovely than any human being, as she shone in her own soft radiance. 天皇陛下もこんな美しい人を見たことはないと。When Princess Moonlight became aware that a stranger was looking at her, she tried to escape from the room. But the emperor caught her and begged her to listen to what he had to say. Her only answer was to hide her face in her sleeves. 見ないで. The emperor fell deeply in love with her and begged her to come to the court, where he would give her the position of honor and everything he could ever wish for, she could ever wish for. He was about to send for one of the imperial paladins to take her back with him at once, saying that her grace and beauty should adorn a court but not be hidden in a bamboo cutter's cottage. 天皇陛下も君の美しさはこんななんか誰も見ていない部屋でいるほどのレベルじゃないと。もうレベチだからお願いだからもう俺んち来いと。 But the princess stopped him. She said that if she were forced to go to the palace, she would turn at once into a shadow. And even as she spoke, she began to lose her form. 無理やり連れてかれるなら私は影になりますよと。そう言ってる間にもどんどんと彼女は薄くなってた。Her figure faded from his sight while he looked. 完全に消えてしまいました。The emperor then promised to leave her free only if she would resume her former shape, which she did. 天皇陛下もお願いだから、そのまんまにいてほしいからお願いだから何もしないからそのままでいてと。It was now time for him to return, for his retinue would be wondering what had happened to their royal master when they missed him for so long. So he bade her goodbye and left the house with a sad heart. Princess Moonlight was for him the most beautiful woman in the world. All others were dark beside her, and he thought of her night and day. His Majesty now spent much of his time in writing poems, telling her of his love and devotion, and sent them to her, and though she refused to see him again, she answered with many verses of her own composing, which told him gently and kindly she could never marry anyone on this earth. These little songs always gave him pleasure. Kaguya-Himeは私はこの地球の人とは結婚できないのですと詩で、天皇陛下に教えたと。At this time, her foster parents noticed that night after night that the princess would sit on her balcony and gaze for hours at the moon in a spirit of the deepest dejection, ending always in a burst of tears. One night the old man found her thus, weeping as if her heart were broken, and he besought her to tell him the reason of her sorrow. それ以来、かぐや姫を月を見てワンワンって泣いてたらしいです。With many tears, she told him that he had guessed rightly when he supposed her to not belong to this world, that she had in truth come from the moon, and that her time on earth would soon be over. おじいさんに伝えたと。私は月の人間です。そろそろ帰らなくてはいけない。On the 15th day of that very month of August, her friends from the moon would come to fetch her, and she would have to return. Her parents were both there, but having spent a lifetime on the earth, she had forgotten them, and also the moon world to which she belonged. It made her weep, she said, to think of leaving her kind foster parents and the home where she had been happy for so long. 帰るのがとてもかぐや姫は悲しかったと思う。親とかも長い間地球にいるから覚えてないし。When her attendants heard this, they were very sad and could not eat or drink for sadness at the thought that the princess was so soon to leave them. The emperor, as soon as the news was carried to him, sent messengers to the house to find out if the report were true or not. The old bamboo cutter went out to meet the imperial messengers. The last few days of sorrow had told upon the old man. He had aged greatly and looked much more than his 70 years. Weeping bitterly, he told them that the report was only too true, but he intended, however, to make prisoners of the envoys from the moon, and to do all he could to prevent the princess from being carried back. おじいさんも月から来た、使いの人たちを、無理やり閉じ込めて、もう何としてでもかぐや姫を閉じ込めようと。The man returned and told his majesty all that had passed. On the 15th day of that month, The emperor sent a guard of 2,000 warriors to watch the house. 陛下も戦争だと。1,000 stationed themselves on the roof. Another 1,000 kept watch around all the entrances of the house. All were well-trained archers with bows and arrows. The bamboo cutter and his wife hid Princess Moonlight in an inner room. たくさんの兵士たちに守られて、話さないよって。The old man gave orders that no one was to sleep that night. All in the house were to keep a strict watch and be ready to protect the princess. With these precautions and the help of the emperor's men-at-arms, he hoped to withstand the moon messengers. But the princess told him that all these measures to keep her would be useless, and that when her people came for her, nothing, whatever could, prevent them from carrying out their purpose. かぐや姫も無謀だと。そんなことしても月の人たちはあなたたちは止められませんよと。Even the emperor's men would be powerless. Then she added with tears that she was very, very sorry to leave him and his wife, whom she had learned to love as her parents, that if she could do as she liked, she would stay with them in their old age, and try to make some return for all the love and kindness they had showered upon her during all her healthy life, earthly life. The night wore on. The yellow harvest moon rose high in the heavens, flooding the world. Asleep with her golden light, silence reigned over the pine and the bamboo forests, and on the roof where the 1,000 men at arms waited. Then the night grew gray towards the dawn, and all hoped that the danger was over. ピカーンって光が鳴って。The Princess Moonlight would not have to leave them after all. Then, suddenly, the watchers saw a cloud form around the moon, and while they looked, this cloud began to roll earthwards. Nearer and nearer it came, and now everyone saw with dismay that its course lay toward the house. 月から雲が階段のようにかぐや姫の家に出てきたと。In a short time, the sky was entirely obscured, till at last the cloud lay over the dwelling only 10 feet off the ground. In the midst of the cloud, there stood a flying chariot, and in the chariot a band of luminous beings. One amongst them, who looked like a king and appeared to be the chief, stepped out on the chariot and, poised in air, called to the old man to come out. "The time has come," he said, "for Princess Moonlight to return to the moon from whence she came. She committed a grave fault, and as a punishment was sent to live down here for a time. We know what good care you have taken of the princess, and we have rewarded you for this, and have sent you wealth and prosperity. We put the gold in the bamboos for you to find." 月から来た、兵士なのかな、時が来ました。かぐや姫は月の世界で、罪を犯し、そのせいで、罰として地球に送られたけど、君たち2人、そのおじいさんとおばあさんはちゃんと、お世話してくれたから、そのおかげに、そのお返しとしてたくさんお金を渡しましたと。I have brought up this princess for 20 years, and never once has she done a wrong thing. Therefore the lady you are seeking cannot be this one, said the old man. I pray you to look elsewhere. もうおじいさんは この子が罪を犯すわけはない。だから君が探してるのは違う人だと。Then the messenger called aloud, saying, Princess Moonlight, come out from this lowly dwelling. Rest not there another moment. At these words, the screen of the princess' room slid open of their own accord, revealing the princess shining in her own radiance, bright and wonderful and full of beauty. The messengers led her forth and placed her in the chariot. She looked back and saw with pity the deep sorrow of the old man. She spoke to him many comforting words and told him that it was not her will to leave him, that he must always think of her when looking at the moon. かぐや姫は帰る準備をしておじさんに、月を見るたび私のことを思ってくださいと。The bamboo cutter implored to be allowed to accompany her, but this was not allowed. The princess took off her embroidered outer garment and gave it to him as a keepsake. 形見として、彼女の着物をおじさんにあげました。One of the moon beings in the chariot held a wonderful coat of wings. Another had a phial full of the elixir of life which had given the princess to drink. She swallowed a little and was about to give the rest to the old man, but she was prevented from doing so. The robe of wings was about to be put upon her shoulders, but she said, Wait a little. I must not forget my good friend, the emperor. I must write him once more to say goodbye while still in this human form. かぐや姫は、天皇陛下の方に、私が人間である間に、さよならの詩を書きたいと。In spite of the impatience of the messengers and charioteers, she kept them waiting while she wrote. She placed a phial of the elixir of life with the letter, and giving them to the old man, she asked him to deliver them to the emperor. Then the chariot began to roll heavenwards towards the moon, and as they all gazed with tearful eyes at the receding princess, the dawn broke, and in the rosy light of the day, the moon chariot and all in it were lost amongst the fleecy clouds that were now wafted across the sky on the wings of the morning wind. Princess Moonlight's letter was carried to the palace. His Majesty was afraid to touch the elixir of life, so he sent it with the letter to the top of the most sacred mountain in the land, Mount Fuji, and there the royal emissaries burned it on the summit at sunrise. かぐや姫からいただいた命の液体っていうのかなを、天皇陛下はいただいたんだけど、飲むのが怖かったから、富士山の一番上に置いて、日が昇る時の瞬間に、燃やしたと。でその燃やした空気が、他の人たちに見えた。So to this day, people say there is smoke to be seen rising from the top of Mount Fuji to the clouds. いまだに富士山から煙が見える時があるのはそれなのかもって。おしまい。富士山からの煙はそれのかぐや姫の仕業なのかもしれません。ちゃんちゃんちゃん。So that was the mystery. That was the book. I hope you all enjoyed. 楽しんでくれたかな。結構長い本だったね。It's a pretty long story. Hope you all stayed. 見て